I from my heart place to your heart place, Hannah, to Heart Place Hospital podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real privilege and blessing. I'm excited.
Me too. I can't wait to see what comes out of our mouths. I pulled a card. I pulled a couple of cards actually. I pulled my daily ceremony card and I got nourishment. I thought that was very apt, and our listeners will see why soon. And then I pulled from the Rose Oracle, felt real Mary Magdalene energy, and I got open. So say yes. Say yes, expand through the extremities, trust life. So, and I know you've already done this, and I've done it. We've both tongue scraped this morning, and we're both drinking Goddess Green, so we've started our day well. And I like to start the podcast with how I know the guests. So I dropped into your life. We're Insta friends, and I dropped into your life, and I'm not sure you'll be able to tell me of when the timing was. So it was just as your mum's was on her end of life journey. Mm-hmm. And you're walking alongside your mum in the end of life journey. So that's when I dropped into your life. Whenabouts was that?
Yeah, so that was in 2020.
Okay. Oh,
Mum,
wow.
In June 2020, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, interesting. So, yeah, so you had a really big last leap year, didn't you? Last time we had a leap year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Huge. Mum came to stay with us in February of that year, and then of course March we ended up locked down. So she came to stay with us so that she could be looked after by me, and because her partner, it was a lot for him, and she just felt she wanted to be with family. And at that time we didn't have it in our minds that she was going to pass, like that she was actually terminally ill, particularly because I have done such deep dives into research and reading healing stories, and I knew so much and wanted to help her very much to keep her earth side. But unfortunately she wasn't on the same page as me with it, as far as she was, if you would talk about it, and she'd maybe act keen and wanting to, but the actual doing of it, the actions that needed to be taken, never really happened. It was more me driving that bus and trying to keep her with us. And for some reason on her life journey, her path was to actually pass away peacefully. It wasn't to have this drive and strive to live, which some people might find really unusual to hear that. I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I just think, so certain people, they aren't meant to have miraculous healing happen and carry on. Their soul finishes up at a certain point, and my mum, I feel, was like that. There just wasn't the internal drive from her to take the bull by the horns and take on any of this information I was sharing with her, or to really take the potions and pills and herbs and all these things, smoothies that I was making and all of that kind of thing. I'd go into the room and a quarter of the smoothie would have been drunk, and it would be hours later, so, or the pills would be sitting there all day and this kind of thing. So that was tough for me to reconcile with. I think just because I so desperately wanted her to live for her grandchildren and for us, and all the knowledge and research and stuff I had done, I really and to let people know, I haven't actually said she died of breast cancer that spread throughout her body. It was her second time having it. I just really wanted her to live. So for me, it was like there was grief while she was still alive, because I had to detach and let go of that, because it was me wanting that for her, and because she wasn't wanting that for herself, which people I know will just be like, what? She didn't want to live, but that was literally what it was like. it wasn't that she didn't want to live. Yeah, it's hard to explain. But anyway, me letting go of that and being like, oh, my mum's going to die, and detaching from that, like, I've got to keep my mum alive, I've got to keep my mum alive, was so hard. And it was the most immense amount of grief I've ever experienced. And I grieved more with that than her actual passing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I might do is read your bio that you've shared with me so people can get a little bit of background to this as well. So, and I actually want to add to your bio because even though we've been Insta friends, I see so much more than what you've shared with me. So you've shared that you're a mum and business owner, and your business is A Nourishing Notion, hence why nourishment was the card that I pulled. And you're a passionate wellness coach. You lived your first 20 years in Timaru, and you moved to Nelson in 2006, and that's when you got your nursing degree. And in 2016, your health crashed and burned after your second child was born, and that was the catalyst for finding your path to vibrant living via a total overhaul of your lifestyle, which I've got to witness. And you've weaved together your nursing knowledge and personal experience along with your adoration of people, and now you tailor support for those who are ready to get on their own path to vibrant health, and you believe that everyone deserves to thrive, which I think's a beautiful picture of who you are. But I also see this real earth shaker and someone who goes against the status quo, a real change maker, chain breaker, a storyteller, a truth finder. I think we sort of have a little bit of that in common. And so many of us who were led into these conventional medicine roles or education roles, we've gone through these life shake-ups and actually seeing that there is more to it. And you mentioned that you're spiritual, that we are these multi-dimensional beings, that this one dimension or two dimension, or even three dimension is not enough for us to thrive. And I love that you've talked about that with your mum, because that was her being her sovereign self, wasn't it? It was her being, this is my journey. And it was, what I'm witnessing from you was that you came to the realization through that experience of that you're walking alongside her, that you weren't the one to fix her. And I found that a lot with my own journey, and with talking with so many health professionals and educators, that we were so conditioned that we were the saviours, and we were to fix people. But more and more of us along this path since the last leap year, we've discovered that in actual fact we are it's up to us. It's up to us to be the self-healer, and then you see the collective shift. Yeah. So so that's your beautiful bio, and we talked about your beautiful mum, and you've had a couple of big catalysts already that we've kind of covered. So the birth of your second child, and then so rites of passage, really, which is what Heart Place Hospital is all about. Is we're really passionate about, particularly our frontliners, because then it ripple effects off so fast, celebrating and understanding these rites of passages. So, yeah, I wonder if you could tell us a little, in your own words, about that journey from there to here.
From where do you want to go from? After Charlotte was born? Or?
Yeah, you can start anyway. I actually start from when I'm 4 years old. You can start anyway, but I speed date.
Yeah, I mean, there is that childhood, like you can't deny or sort of push aside the childhood part, right? Because that obviously shapes who we become as adults in a huge way. And from, if I'm starting there, my parents separated when I was around 8 years old, and the person that my mum ended up with was a narcissistic, abusive man, and he particularly didn't like me, so he would take a lot of stuff out on me, and was very jealous of the relationship my mum and I had, and yeah, she had an affair on my mum, with this man, and ended up with him and having a baby with him, marrying him. And yeah, and then she was just in this abusive relationship for years. It would have been, it's really hard with timelines when you're a kid, but probably at least 6 or 8 years, I think, just putting up with stuff that no woman should ever have to endure. And me in particular as well. My brother was sent to Nelson to live with my dad. And then my half brother, who's my brother, he was a little baby, and it was just like there's constant drama, constant fear, and that really mucked up my self-worth and just who I ended up choosing as a partner. And it also even manifested in rage in adulthood. I actually had an anger problem in my 20s in particular, which some people just are like, what? But you just don't know where people have come from and what we've been up to, right? So yeah, and I do believe that part of my mum getting breast cancer was this toxic relationship. The emotional trauma was never released from her physical self in any way. She was very much a no-nonsense stoic woman who would just get on with life, very high tolerance level, just a very strong woman, that was just like, oh well, let's ostrich that, push it under the rug and carry on with life. And so there wasn't ever counselling offered to her, like when the police were involved in that kind of thing, or for us kids. Or maybe there was for her, but she didn't accept anyway. She didn't go and do any of that healing work. And I just believe that is part of why she got the breast disease. And also, I think there was a big theme within her family of sweeping things under the rug, which I just know now is a big lesson, something that I really don't want to do myself. So yeah, pretty tumultuous childhood in that way. And my relationships, my choice in men was not ideal, and I feel like that definitely played a role in having an anxious attachment style. I'm not sure if people are familiar about attachment styles in relationships, but it definitely that's what I ended up with. So I think I was about 14 by the time Mum actually got away from him. And then she ended up with the most incredibly lovely man when I was about 16. She met my stepdad, who still lives in her house down in Timaru, and is just it was like instant family for him. He was a bachelor, he'd never had kids, never been married, and just add water, he got 3 kids. And he's just the most patient, kind, generous guy. And so for her to have that was amazing. It was fantastic. So that was really cool. And then so once I became a mum, which I was 27 when I had my first child and 29 when I had my second, which is your first Saturn return, if anyone's familiar with astrology. And that's a big life shake-up time. That's when things really, like some big life catalyst for change will usually happen around that 27, 28, 29, 30, like late 20s, and it sure did for me. So I met my ex-husband at 22, and we got married when I was 25, and then had my first child, Jimmy, at 27. And I was just so blind and so asleep to everything, and the relationship wasn't great. There was lots of yelling, swearing, name calling. My children's little nervous systems started out probably feeling quite unsafe, even from the womb space, where they would have witnessed well and truly some pretty horrible behaviour from me and their dad. And Yeah, and then after having my second child, my physical health really crashed and burned. But I also started, as I was on this path of like finding my own healing, because conventional medicine couldn't help me. My bloods were normal. They were kind of like, you're diagnosed with a case of motherhood, ha ha ha. Get out in the sun and go and do some things. And it's like, I was like a shell of a human. I didn't have anything really that you could diagnose other than the eczema, but the straw that broke the camel's back after Charlotte was born, and having 2 babies in 2 years is very hard on the system, very depleting, especially if you're asleep as a human and not knowing how to even give yourself good food and stuff. It was the E. coli in the water system. We live rurally, and I was vulnerable because I was so run down, sleep deprived, had 2 babies under 2, and this E. coli got me good and wrecked my gut health. Absolutely wrecked it. Gave me leaky gut, dysbiosis. So leaky gut is where the small intestine, the tight junctions and the one cell thick wall of the small intestine become loosened up, and particles that should not be allowed to escape there do, and then your immune system fires up. So things like food proteins or bacterial endotoxins, for example, can get out into the bloodstream where they don't belong, and your immune system goes, hey, you're not meant to be here, what are you doing? And then fires up and gives a myriad of symptoms, which are very individualized. Different people will experience different things. Highly recommend the book Fiber Fueled by an American gastroenterologist, Dr. Will Balsowitz, because he goes through like what can be basically brought back to your gut health and leaky gut and dysbiosis. So there was that, and that was causing all kinds of weird symptoms for me. But I did have gas, bloating, terrible gas. Couldn't really go up with that. It was terrible. Constipation. The eczema was atrocious on my hands. Brain fog, lethargy, joint aches, your recurring immune system, like recurring yeast infections, and my immune system was right down, and I was getting every single virus that was going. The way I found out that I had E. coli was I kept getting what I thought were vomiting and diarrhea bugs once a month. And I was like, I'd have these random spews, and I was like, oh, it's because I've got little kids, I'm going to play centre. But in fact, my friend said, get your water tested. And sure enough, yeah, that's what that was, and the damage had been done. But going back to the gut health stuff and how it can cause all these weird symptoms, I was experiencing them, and they were what was taking from my quality of life. And the dysbiosis is where your flora, your microbes, your bugs that live in your gut are out of balance too. So it took a lot of research for me to figure all of this kind of stuff out. I'm an avid natural researcher. I'm thirsty and hungry for knowledge constantly, like I need more hours in the day. But I kind of was like, well, the doctors and that, they're not going to help me, so I will take it on myself, because I'm not going to feel this way for the rest of my life. I'm not going to just sit on this couch feeling like this, where I can't even do a day in town getting groceries and stuff and do that drive, because living rurally as well, like it was just the thought of that was exhausting. And I was like, I can't live like this with my little ones, and this is not going to be my life. So that's why I just went headfirst into the research. And not only that, but being very open to trial and error, and starting off with boiling up, boiling up bones. So it was Western Price style eating, so raw dairy from the farm over the road, making everything from scratch, making a lot of fermented foods, sauerkraut, all of this kind of stuff, kefir, my own cheeses, and just doing everything whole food, old school style, eating quite a lot of meat. We had a 10-acre property, which my husband at the time, he was great at hunting and growing our own meat and having eggs and stuff there. So it was all, good quality meat. And I just was like, I'm not getting anywhere with this. And I'd take probiotics, and I'd take L-glutamine, because I heard that's good for sealing the gut. And wasn't getting anywhere fast. And then I sort of went to paleo, so very low fruit, low grain, or pretty much no grains, low fruit, veggies, meat, eggs. I'd kicked the dairy because Charlotte was extremely colicky, which I now know was a reflection of my poor gut health. So I already was in that going through the crash and burn of my gut health well before it actually did, and my microbiome being not ideal and having a history of things like yeast infections and urinary tract infections as well. She, of course, came out the birth canal and got the flora that was there, and that's what kickstarted her life, that flora. And it wasn't a healthy flora. And so this, and there's research to show this now, that babies born, and cesareans as well, if they're not populated with really healthy flora, if you haven't been conscious about really nurturing your body and looking after yourself and getting your gut health good before you conceive, then yeah, that's what they end up with. And so she just screamed for her first 6 months of life too. So here I am with the most terrible health, just constantly sore, scratching my hands off with eczema, brain foggy, no energy, a 2-year-old, a baby that screams constantly, a husband that doesn't want to touch the baby because she screams constantly. It was kind of like Charlotte was mine and Jimmy was Dad's when he was home. He had work an even time roster, so he was home a lot, and he was a great practical help. But not so much the emotional. So he did what he knew he could do, and it was a great help. Practical help when you've got little ones is like worth its weight in gold. I feel as though you can sort of do without the emotional to an extent, especially if you've got good girlfriends to talk to. It's really that daily grind stuff, having someone that's taking out the rubbish, someone who can cook meals, someone who will get up early and take the one of your children and this kind of stuff and try and leave you to sleep. Like, he was so good like that. Yeah. And yeah, so that was Charlotte as well, and I figured all that out, and it goes back, like, I think of my mum's microbiome and her history of infections and yeast infections and all this. So it just goes through the line, if you're not conscious of breaking that. It's the same with like emotional traumas and things that have gone on in familial, generations back. You can bring that through. Food, the way you eat, all of that comes through, right? If you're not conscious of the pattern and how to break it to do better for yourself. And so I was like, it so makes sense with that too. So we all had shit gut health. We were all struggling. My little kids had these bright, ruddy red cheeks, and people think that's quite normal, but it's actually a sign of poor gut health in little children, and rashy around the mouth, or any kind of skin rashes but around the butt, and anything like that can be attributed to poor gut health. And it took me a while with trying all those diets, the Western price, the paleo, and then went to eventually, so I'll tell a story about going plant-based too. So I was doing these ways of eating and they weren't working for me. So I was sort of 2 years in now. We were getting toward, it was 2018. So start of 2018, my best friend's husband got diagnosed with testicular cancer. She had also had her health crash and burn after her second child. Both of our babies are the same age, like our 2 children. We've both had at the same time. And she ended up with Hashimoto's thyroiditis and celiac so autoimmune disease after second babies in particular. It's a thing. So she ended up unwell too and on a quest to get better. And then her husband got testicular cancer, and that was a huge life shake-up for them. And he had surgery and then declined any further treatment and decided to go holistic with treating the rest of whatever might be there for his cancer. So they would have liked to have given him chemo, but he wasn't keen on that. So he overhauled his diet with whole food, plant-based, but high raw, high fruit, lots of juicing, lots of fasting, water fasting, juice fasting, a lot of herbs like Dr. Morse style of eating, and the herbs that he recommends and uses. And it was just like big detox basically. He had a sauna. He was doing all kinds of things, colonics, to detox his body and get like renew himself. And I saw what they were doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so extreme. I had come from a sheep and beef farming background. I've, been brought up on farms. I lived on a lifestyle block where we ate our meat and our eggs and our dairy and all things that were just homegrown and wholesome, and a whole foods, not much junk, not much out of packets, and thought we're doing pretty well, but I wasn't feeling any better. And they went to this extreme, as I saw it, way of doing life and eating, and I was so sort of like scared by it. And I couldn't understand, like, where do you get your calcium, where do you get your protein, where do you get your iron, and all of this kind of thing. And it was really like, whoa, what are they doing? Anyway, I was still miserable doing what I was doing. And medical medium was another one that they were onto. So Dr. Morse and medical medium were two big ones, and their information and videos and things I watched were really like shaking me to the core of what I knew to be true. They were really shaking my truth, but I was open to trying anything at this point. And you know what? If you try anything new, your old thing is still there to go back to if it doesn't work out, right?
Nice. Yeah. Clever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I gave it a go, the high raw sort of thing, and had huge, horrendous detox symptoms and felt worse. And some of my symptoms were worse, like the gas and bloating and things. I was like, oh no, I can't do this. So I think I gave it a 2 or 3 week stint. I had a bit of dizziness. I felt cold. And I was like, oh, can't do this. This is terrible. And then went back to what I was doing, felt even worse, and then got myself together in October 2018. I was like, right, I am committing to this. I am absolutely rock bottom, at my wit's end. And I went all in with the medical mediums protocols of high raw, high fruit, plant-based eating. No eggs, no meat, no dairy, no fish. All of the animal products were gone. All of the seed oils, gluten, just all kinds of things. I mean, I'd already cut gluten, to be honest, but that is one of his things he says to cut. But I'd already cut gluten sort of 2 years before doing the Western Price and the paleo, and it made a decent difference to my skin on my hands, like the itchiness and stuff. The gluten definitely, and then the dairy for Charlotte's tummy with breastfeeding her colicky self. Cutting the dairy out of my diet while breastfeeding her definitely helped her tummy at that time. And so I went and cut all that out, and there were some other things like the seed oils, anything in a packet. It was extremely whole food and basically raw vegan diet, apart from some cooked potatoes and cooked kumara, pumpkin, that kind of thing. I didn't even eat much fat, like, so no nut butters, no coconut cream. It was an ultra low fat, low protein diet. And because I'm one of those all-in people, I jumped right into it, did it 100%. I was every morning juicing, smoothies, like massive amounts of juice and smoothies each day, big salads, potatoes, all of that kind of thing. And in 3 months, 90% of my ailments had disappeared.
Wow.
And the only thing that was left was a little bit of eczema that was just lingering, because it had been there for 10 years. And I'd had doctors tell me in my nursing job that I was an infection control risk, and I was going to basically have to quit nursing and stuff. I would super glue the splits in my fingers together at work and then put gloves over top, and it was horrendous. And I was using steroid creams on them, and it was just horrendous. I wasn't treating the root cause, but I didn't know about that then.
No, yeah.
Trying to get some relief. So it was it was incredible to be relieved.
What a ride. I mean, you've literally lived the experience. You've got lived experience. So I call people like you and myself the bridge. So and yours is so extreme, like having been brought up on, on a dairy farm, and then here now you are fully plant-based.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious, like and I know there's more to the story because there's now a Nourishing Notion and all that you've created there, and the beautiful vulnerability that you share online and the example that you've created. And I know there's been lots of amazing twists and turns in there too, as I've followed you online, which I've loved. And I've loved that you've showed your celebrations and your learnings as well. And I've loved watching so much conscious living. So I've seen conscious relationships and conscious uncoupling. I've seen your conscious parenting, and then a recent another conscious relationship that you're now sharing with so many people, which is, we've not had that exampled or modeled to us. It's been anything but that. It's been the opposite. Our education has never taught us about compassionate communication or about uncoupling relationships, whether they're intimate or not intimate. There's been sort of really no life skills, and particularly as women, as we're transitional. We're so transitional. We're monthly transitional. We've got 4 huge potential rites of passage that we go through, and when I think about my last 8 years, where I've done the same thing, deep dived and discovered remembered, there's a black hole. I'm like, there was nothing. There was zero, nothing. And it's people like you and me and so many more, which is, and there's room for so many of us. And this is why I wanted to create this platform to storytell, because no one's telling the stories, right? There's nothing in the news and media, and a lot of us have given up on that. I've done media releases up my wazoo, and because I believe, because it's solution focused, it's not getting shared, and I think that I really believe that as nurses in particular, we've been literally on the front line, hands in people's bodily fluids, and are waiting for instructions. We're literally the bridges, and more and more of us are discovering the feminine power of actually having this inner knowing, this wisdom, and we are bringing the inner witch out, which just literally means wisdom. There's nothing scary or bad about witch. And so I've just loved having you as kind of like a ally, showing up as well, because it's massive, like so freaking brave and requires so much courage. And I'm just really curious, what's that been like? What's that been like, smashing through glass ceilings? And like, what sort of injuries have you endured as you've like smashed through? And I know you're like me, you're a truth teller, and we would have been, our heads would totally be off. We'd be totally burnt with the things that we've showed up and shared, and albeit sometimes, with shaky voices or too much grrr or whatever. But anyway, at the end of the day, we keep showing up and standing up and speaking up, and I know it's from our absolute heart desire that not another lot of humanity has to go through these learnings. Yeah, so just really curious to share what's it been like.
Oh my gosh, my whole body just did this like
yeah.
It has been unreal for me. I'm a reforming people pleaser. I've always feared what others think of me, wanted to do best by others, wanted to keep the peace, not rock the boat. And really had no voice, wasn't able to readily speak up. And then come 2020, I mean, even prior to that, when you start to eat really well and high vibrational foods, like a lot of plant food, like I started having my spiritual awakening too. Started believing in the angels. I started praying. Medical medium helped with that too. He's got like spiritual beliefs are super intertwined into that healing. You need to have a belief in a higher source to heal That's what I believe. And
But
a
I
lot of
think
people.
also, Hannah, what happens is when you heal those boundary wounds, you know how I talked about the darkness, there'd been just this black hole. When you heal those, this light comes in, and this angelic realm and unworldly realm actually is attracted to the light. So all these freaky deaky shit happens, and you're like, who said that?
And synchronicities and just signs and things, and you can ask and they show you as well, which is that's what really like sealed the deal for me, because I was very tentative starting out with my spiritual journey. I'm like, I don't know, a bit dubious, but then as a child I prayed, so I knew, like, I had no religious upbringing, no spiritual upbringing or beliefs, but yet I innately would pray. And then and always been open-minded, I guess, and so with the plant-based eating became this like opening and awakening, and more of that spiritual side, but also personal growth stuff of like, what will I and won't I tolerate now, and the conscious parenting and the rage that was coming out in my parenting, how terrible that made me feel, and I wasn't going to do that to my children. Going and getting talk therapy initially, and just being so ready to just offload all of this shit to my wonderful counsellor. It was like I had 4 free sessions through the GP referred because of the anger and stuff I was experiencing in my childhood trauma. I did 2 sessions. I really needed 1.5, and I was like, I woke up like a new person already. Being able to tell this person stuff that I'd never told anyone before, and being so ready, and her being so good at what she did, not beating around the bush, and just like getting it, seeing what needs to be sorted and helping me sort it and see and she was really spiritual too, is really spiritual. She's amazing. I still will tap in with her when I need now. And that was, I was like 30 years old or 31 years old. I'm 37 now. So in my early 30s accessing her, and that was just like this momentum, like a kickoff of like in my nursing profession too, of like, what am I doing here? I've gone to this extreme healing diet, and all these people around me are so unwell, and they have no knowledge of any of this stuff, and I felt like an outcast in the conventional medical model and among my colleagues, and I'd get judged for the food that I'd bring to work, because I'd bring a litre of smoothie for morning tea while they're having their cheese, crackers and biscuits that were all put on, and their espresso coffees and all of this kind of thing, and they're judging me for what I'm eating. Too much fruit, this kind of nonsense. But in fact, I then learned that one of my colleagues and his wife were actually mostly plant-based, and his parents were plant-based and huge in the Seventh-day Adventist church and doing this amazing lifestyle program for people. And so he actually got it, but I had never known he was even that way inclined before I had my overhaul. And feeling all alone in the profession, like this complete weirdo doing these detoxes and like all of this kind of stuff, and eating all this fruit and whatever, and no meat, no animal products. But he was actually like, oh yeah, that's like plant-based nutrition, I'm right into that, and I like telling my patients about that. But for some reason it was very bizarre, but I felt far less alone, because then I found all the doctors in plant-based nutrition all around the world, all these medical professionals, and all the science and all the anecdotal evidence and all the history of these cultures that have eaten maybe 5% animal products in their diet, and how long they live for, so healthy, not on medications, not with any of these lifestyle diseases like cancer, heart disease, strokes and obesity and type 2 diabetes. And I was like, hang on, I'm really onto something here. I'm not on my own. But yeah, so just getting brave in the workplace to be able to just even enjoy my food and be like, no, I know this to be true. So trying to stand in my truth. And then and I had already started like feeling really uncomfortable as a vaccinator, practice and vaccinating babies and stuff. I absolutely all of a sudden, and that had sort of happened over a few years. I'd started to be like, oh, I don't know about this vaccinating thing. And my daughter didn't get her 4-year-old vaccinations. so it was like a little bit earlier on, I guess, that I'd already been like that. And then it got to the point in 2020 with like all the COVID stuff that I felt it in my bones. There'll be a vaccine coming, and I'm going to have to I'm not going to have it because I'm so well. Why would I? I've just been so unwell, and I've got myself incredibly well. I don't need that. Like I'd stopped having flu vaccinations as well. I didn't need that because I trusted in my body. And even just being able to do that and trust in myself and my body was such a huge thing for me. And being able to start to speak up for what I believed in and tell my patients, hey, there's this other option and this kind of thing. Like it took a lot of bravery. So it's very tiny baby step stuff. But it was all building, I believe, to this COVID situation where and I'd already said to my husband at the time in 2020, I was like, they're going to bring a vaccine in and I'm going to say no to it and they're not going to let me work. I just hadn't had the knowing. And I said, I'm warning you now that I'm not going to have that extra income. Like I'm not going to be able to work because I will leave the job. I'm just wanting to give you that information and get your support around that. And he's like, oh yeah, like he wasn't like, no, don't do, you can't leave your job or anything. But he was like, oh, okay. And then 2021, sure enough, so I was still working in practice nursing, only a couple of half days a week. I left my marriage. I'd lost my mum in 2020, had a huge life shake-up. What is this all about? Existential crisis number, probably 5 at that point. And I was just like completely shaken to the core of who I was, what I wanted, what my life was. And my marriage had been really hard for years, and I'd done my darndest to just hold it together, do the work on myself. At that point, I'd been doing years of work on myself, but I wanted him to come with, and he didn't come with, which was really hard. We weren't growing together, and he judged me a lot for who I was and how I was doing life now, and resented that I wasn't who I was when he married me. So he had this expectation that I'd stay the same for my life and that I'd still be the same person he married, but instead I had this huge awakening and growth path, and it just shook him up. And we just really grew apart, and I knew it was coming, and I warned him as well, we should go and get some help, get some couples counselling, because I feel that we're going to end up apart. And he wouldn't do it. And you can't take, you can do what you can for yourself, but you can't make another person do anything. And I knew that from my mum's experience. So he and I ended up basically falling out of love, I guess. And come April 2021, I left with my best friend, who had also left her ex-husband the October, and was living with us, boarding with us in our unit down under the house. Her and her daughter and me and my kids moved into this house here together.
Oh, I love it.
Our parents played a role in that, because her parents passed within 3 days of each other. She became an adult orphan in her 20s she had her baby girl, and her mum died of breast cancer, and her dad died about 3 days later, and he was elderly and had heart problems and stuff, but basically died of a broken heart. And so she was very alone, and we took her into our house. She soon realized that our relationship was not great. And then her and I in April 2021 moved into this cute farm rental that we're in, and had each other's support with all of that. And we just believe that our parents played a role in that serendipitous thing, that we were together when we left, and we didn't have to do it alone. Quite incredible. But so I was working in that nursing job, and I was getting more and more disheartened by it all and disconnected from it, and it was so incongruent to what I believed in. And then, of course, they brought the vaccine in, and everyone in the building was vaccinated except for me. And I'd done so much research and reading, and I was so sure. Like, I already had that knowing in 2020.
Came through,
cognizance kind of thing, which I do have, that gift of knowings. And then once it was actually happening in 2021, I was the last person And the lovely doctor, the plant-based one, he came and talked to me, and I said, look, I just think everyone should have a choice with this, and I believe in my immune system, and I believe in my lifestyle, and I'm so healthy, I'm not afraid, and I don't feel I'm putting anyone at risk. And he accepted that because he's a wonderful person. But it then was that I was that odd one out there, and everyone knew. And then I knew mandates were coming. I don't know if I really knew it or if I had the knowing then, but anyway, mandates coming November, and I thought I'm going to just leave before it gets to that point where I'm forced to go all in on A Nourishing Notion, my business, which I started at the end of 2020. So A Nourishing Notion started in 2019 as just like a social media sharing platform so I could share information in my journey with people. And then I started in 2020 coaching people and selling the products that were integral in helping me to heal from the adrenal fatigue, the postnatal depletion, the gut health stuff, all that was going on for me when I'd had Charlotte and, my health crashed. And my mum gave me a lot of money to start that business and get my website up and running and get some stock going. And my stepdad, actually I still owe my dear stepdad. I keep saying, give me your bank account number, I can pay you back now.
Yeah. I love these stories. So all the stories that we're sharing on this podcast are the pain to purpose. And so and you've just shared your one is just so beautifully and succinctly, this kind of journey of your own health. And I know I absolutely know, because I can reflect back on my own, and it's not Disneyland, it's painful, but then the purpose that comes out of it, and it's interesting because it never ends, right? Once you pop, it doesn't stop. So so you're but now, and I love this, one of my other guests, she talks about it's kind of like, I've never heard this analogy. I've got lots of analogies, but one where you're going up the hill. But now when you're going up the hill, you know that you're going to go back down the hill, but you also know that there's going to be another hill to come.
Yes.
But you kind of build this fitness and this, we use resilience. I don't use that word. I've found it banded around so much in nursing. It actually brings up a bit of vomit, so it's a real somatic feeling for me. But this kind of fitness, but also as you transition that darkness into light, and you start getting these downloads, and you start kind of following those breadcrumbs, which end up being gold nuggets and gold boulders, you start meeting people, and straight away when you're walking up that hill, you're like, actually, you know what? I need to contact Hannah. She'll know about this. I'm going up a hill she's been up. So we're collaborating, and we're connecting, and we're sharing knowledge. So a lot of our era it's been about going to get university educated, and whereas we've actually got this lived experience plus this innate nature as we heal our boundary wounds, those wounds that were keeping us stuck, and the people pleasing, the busyness, the perfectionism. I know them well. I've got badges for all of them. When we remove those and create space for that light, then that innate nature just comes through, and stuff comes through, and I'm like, how do I know that? How do I know that? But we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and albeit we're transmuting. We're no more karma. We're done. We're going to learn this time. This time I'm going to learn, because I don't want it back again, and I don't want to give it to someone else back again. And the beautiful magic and miracles of it is that it ripple effects off out to others. And that's why that's why my pain to purpose is Heart Place Hospital. And I just know for a fact, us as Frontline, we've experienced gaslighting, grief, sadness, burnout, harassment, abuse, everything that you can think of, and we've been so conditioned to put up with it because we're the caregiver. This is your role. You signed up for it. You said yes to it. You signed the contract. And now more and more of us are like, no, actually, I signed the contract of learning, transmuting, and creating more light into this world. That's what I signed the contract of.
Yeah. And
Um,
I just want to say, like, it's just so incredibly cool that you're on this path at your age. Like, I don't want to sound like to be offensive at all, but like, I feel like younger people, it's happening more and more for, but it's very difficult to get any kind of person that's like late 40s, 50s, and beyond to actually make any kind of drastic change or wake up to see, like, to use their curious mind and question things and stand up and speak up or be the odd one out. It's very, very uncommon for kind of 50 plus.
yeah.
For people to do it. So I feel like you're just, yeah, it's so inspiring. And we had a phone call, I think it was in 2021, not long after I'd left my husband and was going through this transition with my conventional nursing, where, because past Hannah, I always just did as I was told in my nursing job, what the government said. Like, if you had to have this annual flu jab, I had the annual flu jab. I just always went along, didn't want to rock the boat, wanted to stay in the job for my entire life, which I just think is so hilarious now. Like, I literally just want to be a practice nurse in the same practice for the rest of my life at one point, to getting to the point of being like, no, and being able to say that and being able to know what I actually wanted for a start, like be aware of what I wanted and then stand up for it. And we had a conversation where I was just going through a really rocky part, and you were so helpful, like that mother energy and that guiding, just your wisdom and your life experience and your tenacity and strength and courage was so inspiring for me at that lost time.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. I thank you for seeing that in me. I see it too. It's hard. But I'm raising two daughters, and I just, regardless of what gender they are, it's a do or die for me. Like, I just can't. I've just seen so much sweep under a carpet, so much of my nursing life, and just the detriment that that's now going to have on our future population. But we just don't have a system that's going to sustain what I've witnessed. And you've just displayed it so beautifully, that our experiences in our environment manifest our mental and physical reality. And until we start, it's happening. It's exciting. It's totally happening, and there's room for more on the broom for sure. And that's what I'm really wanting to highlight. And your story is special for me to share. Is that through we can be the bridges, and we can and what I really want people to see, and what I didn't realise was happening with Heart Place Hospital, but it absolutely is those that I've coached in the past have now healed their boundary wounds. They can advocate for themselves and others, and now they're crafting a life. They don't want to be the cost. They don't want to be seen as the cost in the health system, which we all know as business people, we don't invest in our cost. We cut our costs. And so we're able to provide them a platform and the courage, and because it's so easy, it's simple for me. Like, I can't even believe it's my life, because it's just so easy for me. And that's what they say in business, right? Is do what you're good at and what's easy, and what you love, and that's what my pain to my purpose has created. And I just see it. I see we can have lots of coaches, but if we have them all in this kind of one space, and as our frontliners require us, we can triage them out. And that's a gift that I have, and those that triage for Heart Place Hospital have gifts of, and we nail it every time, 100%. Yeah. And so we're filling people like you who are brave and showing up, filling your resources and providing you with abundance so that you can carry on. And then we're all awake. We're all waking up. We're all conscious, and we can ripple that effect off. I mean, imagine. I just think about if we had teachers in front of the generation that are at school now who are awake and brave enough to go against the status quo. Within a generation, we've got a sustainable and simple health and education system.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited to see what these children of conscious parents that are, coming through now, like, see what they do with that fearlessness and that ability to speak from their own truth and not fear what anyone else says and not take on what anyone else says, knowing that whatever anyone else's opinion is of them is not their business, and that they can fearlessly do what they want to do. And I hope so much that my children, they're seeing how I live too, and they often it's said that it's by example, you're a role model in how you do your life, so that's really cool too. But also I have open conversations with my children. My communication has changed so much. I'm now able to openly and vulnerably share and talk about stuff with my children, instead of like having it all swept under the rug or just sitting there. I can actually even see what's going on for them, and like even be their voice sometimes too. Like, for example, with my stepchildren, who are not used to yet, they're like not quite a year in of being parented by me, and they're doing so well. And they're incredible kids. And things like making a noise when they want something, like a gesture and a noise, and I'm like, Hannah, can you please turn that tap on? My hands are full, I need to, so like putting words for them as well, I've found is hugely important. And just being so open with communication, like that's been a revelation for me. Little steps of shedding the people pleasing stuff, and then also being brave enough to use my voice in any instance, especially in my intimate relationships, being able to practice that and know, because if you've got an anxious attachment style, thankfully mine's now mostly secure due to the work that I've done on this and my self-worth. But before, I'd be fearful of like really speaking up in case they'd leave me and I'd be abandoned, fear of abandonment. And so now I can speak up and know that if a man that I'm in a relationship with can't hold that space for that and can't deal with that in a mature way, then they're not for me. I see you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Boundaries. Yeah.
My beautiful Adam, aka Ted, is just like, he's a breath of fresh air. He's one in a million. And I know, and I can, for the first time in an intimate relationship, be my most true self, say what I want to say, do what I want to do, and he's just there. He's not going to go anywhere. He never has judged me. He's more curious and intrigued and likes to learn, because he loves to learn too, and he's open to learning from me and with me and going on these adventures and journeys and things together. And it's so wonderful.
Amazing. I love it. I just want to share, so I've been with my husband for 23 years, and obviously I'm transitioning through to another rite of passage. And the other day he was saying to me, you need to do this, and this. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't have that ability. I said, I did that for 4 decades and I'm not doing it for any more decades. And I, I've put boundaries in place. Don't forget, I'm transitioning through into menopause. And I love it. He sort of marinades for a while, and then he sent me a text later on. He goes, oh, I'm sorry that I put that on you, and please keep letting me know more about what's happening with your transition, because I want to be there with you. And I was just like, thank you. Thank you.
So you guys are soulmates.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but
it's growing together.
It is, and we've made a conscious decision that we want to chain break and be change makers, and even though we've made that decision, we still have to meet quite often. And another example happened this week, and I was talking to him about compassionate conversation, and so he responded to something that had activated him with my support, with compassionate response. And I just was so cool to watch, because from that event something took place, and then someone found out about him, and then he's got this amazing opportunity from it. So what I was trying to show him, that something that activated him, and he responded with compassion, a magic and miracle came out of it. So it's really cool. I think, and you're doing this work too. So many of us women, we're super wounded from our lack of understanding and celebrating our rites of passage. But our kings, they witness their mothers, their wives, their daughters being burnt at the stake. So they too need some space and compassion to actually remember as well. So it is really a delight, and I feel very blessed. I was going to say lucky, but I've worked hard.
It's just that communication again, right? With you as a woman, you need to spell it out to these guys.
Yeah.
You need to say what you want and desire and need. And if they're truly respectful of you and your relationship, then they should be open to problem solving with you as to, like, how can we work this out so that we are doing better and you're feeling really good, and that openness to adapt and make changes or implement something that supports you.
Yeah, definitely.
Not shut you down with that. You should be able to. We as individual people, we aren't to be providing for ourselves all our needs and wants and desires. We're just not individuals like that. Human nature is to be together in groups and families and
community collaboration. Yeah, definitely. So that's not what we've been educated. We haven't been educated that.
Yeah, you shouldn't expect to meet all your needs by yourself. It's okay to voice your needs, wants and desires to your partner. It doesn't mean that they can fulfill them, but you can at least talk through and come to some kind of arrangement or agreement that might suit you both. But I think women are really afraid of voicing their wants, needs and desires.
Definitely, yeah. Getting better. Definitely getting better. Hey, I know we could go on for hours, and I do try and keep these to half an hour, and we've done an hour. So there might be a part 2, I think, with Hannah. Yeah.
I'd love it too.
Yeah. So, but just to finish it off, I love to ask, like, what's in your heart place right now? Like, what can you share with those that are listening, and how can everybody find you? And I feel like we will have to have a part 2.
I think the biggest thing is to not allow yourself to keep up the walls around your heart that someone else has put there, that you haven't actually. Like, they've happened because of something with somebody else, like something that somebody's done to you has created these walls, and they're not your walls, they're somebody else's. So take back your power by working on yourself to break down those walls and become open and free and sovereign and let love shine through, because otherwise you're giving your power to whoever has done that in the first place. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh gosh, wouldn't you love to share that to kids as well? Yeah. And where can we find you?
You can find me. I'm on Instagram quite frequently. I bloody love it. It's a mouthful. My business is A Nourishing Notion, and so you will find me on Instagram at A Nourishing Notion. I'm also on Facebook. I have a website, anourishingnnotion.co.nz, where I sell all kinds of wonderful natural whole food supplements that can really make a difference to your life. I love them. I use them myself daily. And I offer one-to-one coaching services, and I've got a retreat in Bali in September, which is exciting because that's all new for me too. So yeah,
amazing. And how many spaces have you got left on your retreat?
We have still got 7. Okay,
cool. Oh, well, we'll put a link in the show notes. I just want to say that because I'm a podcaster, and the show notes. So we'll put a link to your Instagram and website as well. Thank you so much, Hannah. We're definitely having Hannah and Jackie part 2.
Love it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a great day, darling. Bye.
You too. Lots of love.